can hear me. I'm not an ex-teacher like Andrew. So
the microphone's on.
The microphone's on. Just tell me if I go quiet. It's a pretty quiet voice. I'm not going to go into depth. There's a lot that's come out of this consultation, this piece of research. So I'm not going to go into the depth of it today. I'll only give you the bullet points, and you can read the report yourself and tell us what you make of it. The idea to undertake an assets consultation of Govanhill was firstly originated when I took over the role of manager of the centre to inform the sort of work that we do. I came into that position thinking, well, I can't possibly know myself or dream of myself what sorts of interests the wide range of people living in Govanhill might have, what they might want to explore through a whole range of sorts of learning opportunities. So the first thing to do is to talk to them and find out where the interests are and know what could be developed. It also seemed really clear. I mean, I was brought up in 308 Alison Street, so Govanhill has a with cockroaches and mice. No bed bugs, but cockroaches and mice. So Govanhill has a really strong, fond place in my heart, and often I'm walking down the streets and I'll have flashbacks to when I was a child trotting along the road to Annette Street Primary. But certainly, obviously it's changed over the years. I moved out of the area when I was 16 from Albert Road, and I've lived in other parts of the world and indeed the country. So it's fascinating to be back here and working where I was born and grew up. But to try to understand, the aim was to try to understand what are people interested in. And I was also really struck, and I've seen it over the last decade, that the massive amount of negative press that Govanhill has had, that it's cited as Govanhill, it's dirty, there's loads of violence, there's loads of crime, all this negative stuff that is just pulling a sense of purpose down. And I firmly subscribe to views that development is only possible where people are building what they've got. That only by trying to utilise and mobilise the resources that you have, even if those are minimal resources, that's how you will progress. And that constantly trying to fix things, trying to sort problems as one-offs is not going to be productive. I was aware in my conversations with some of the agencies, some of the public sector agencies, that there was a real frustration with Govanhill in terms of the problem-solving agenda. So again, the need not only to inform the sort of work that the centre would do, but also to think about, well, if there is an aim for Govanhill to develop, if there is an aim to promote the regeneration of Govanhill, then that has to look much more broadly at what people have got. So this asset mapping is a process, for those of you who aren't familiar with it. It's been used in Africa, it's been used in South America. In terms of the Western world, it's been used a lot in Scandinavia and also the States, and there's a lot of positive results. But basically it is about understanding an asset as being more than something that you can exchange for money. That an asset is a resource that you have to live your life. It could be your friends, your family, your skills, your abilities, your ways of seeing the world, the environment you have, the natural world around you. So trying to get to grips with how people understood the various different resources that they have and how they might like to see them used. That was at the heart of what we did. And a whole range of volunteers helped through, first of all, coming up with a questionnaire that would be accessible, interesting, and relevant for people. You're really disconcerting me, Andrew. We were really keen that we spoke to people that maybe didn't get spoken to a lot. We tried to engage with people that maybe weren't part of groups already, that have opinions, that live here, but maybe aren't already active. So we spent a lot of time in the pubs, we spent a lot of time in the Pandora and the Victoria Bar, part of the job. We spent a lot of time in the laundry, we spent a lot of time in some of the cafes, on the streets, in the health centre, just trying to get a grip of what people are thinking and what this incredibly diverse range of people coming from really different cultural, social experiences are thinking about Govanhill, to try to work out what's of interest, what can be developed, what might be the next steps. So it's very much a starting point. So we asked him a load of questions that are linked to this idea of community capitals, and I guess a capital is another word for an asset. And we looked at 8 areas, and I guess we could have looked at more, but we looked at 8 areas. The build is probably quite clear to you. It's the buildings and the streets, maybe more commonly termed as assets. The natural environment, we're looking at the green space, we're looking at the weather, we're looking at what are the natural resources, what have we got that we didn't choose to have here that we could maybe work with. Human, again, looking at what skills and interests do people have. You know, is there some consistency in terms of skills? Are there skills here that aren't tapped into yet? Finance, there's a lot of work done in terms of looking at the poverty of Scotland, Govanhill, through various national and local statistics. So in terms of finance, we were looking at the local economy. We were looking at what is the local ability to generate income for ourselves. What does that look like, and how do we find out what's of value to people there? We looked at social capital, at people's social networks. We looked at their cultural capital. Again, interestingly, an area with a wide range of cultures, and you know, one of the things, so therefore a lot of cultural objects and cultural practices which are of real value to people. But I suppose one of the things that made me really sad and maybe epitomises one of the findings is that one woman that I spoke to said to me, I'm from Scotland, so I don't have a culture. And that was quite. It was interesting that it's a lot of the Scottish oblique Irish, but Indigenous people who are living in Govanhill who maybe don't have a sense of cultural resources. But certainly there's a wealth of cultural resource here. Narrative capital is an interesting one, and I think it's really important because it's about how does a story you have to tell, how does that work for you, how can you make that story an asset? And you know, I think if people tell me, well, narrative capital, it's a wee bit woolly, I just say, well, look at politicians, look at David Cameron, they align themselves up with spin doctors. First thing they do is appoint the best spin doctors they can find to tell the right stories about them. So the story you have to tell about yourself is crucial, and unfortunately for Govanhill, the story that's being told about it is not in the ownership of the people who live here, and it's a very negative one. Political capital is access to public realm, access to being able to influence the decisions that at a structural level that might make a difference to how people live their lives. So we looked, and then we asked people, well, what would you like to see here? Given all we've discussed around all these areas, what would make a difference? And I'm not going to go into depth on any of the findings because it will take too long, and I'm desperate for some more wine. But I guess the highlights for me are that in terms of the political and in terms of the widespread disaffection that people feel, and the lack of control that people have over the ability to make decisions. And while people have a real sense of completely vociferous, many people told me fantastic things, and told all of us fantastic things about Govanhill, about the green spaces, about the access to parks, about the skills they have, about the people. I mean, for an area that's given such negative press, the number of people who said the best thing about Govanhill is the people, and the sense of community, and the connections. In fact, there were some people saying, you know, we've lived in other parts of Glasgow, but we've never got to know our neighbours in the way we know them here. We've never had such a sense of feeling of being part of something as we have here. So I think that's really interesting, that that's so important to so many people, and it seems to be overlooked. But for all people's ability to narrate all of the positives and all of the things they'd like to see happen here, there is a sense of alienation from making decisions that will affect some of the changes they could see. So people are sitting at home feeling frustrated that they can see there are issues, but not really having the connections that will allow them to make that difference. So I mean, that seems to me it's extremely important working locally to understand how structures, how policy, how national policy, how global policy can be either helping or obstructing. And it's a real challenge to look at how you work locally, but also affect some of these structures that might be obstructing the work that you want to do. So this, if you want, that was a very, very whistle-stop tour. People came up with loads of fantastic ideas. You can read them on the wall, you can read them in here. Please take a copy of the newspaper, which gives you some of the bullet points. There's also the big report, which is here. You can download it free online if you like, or you can buy a copy for a small donation of £5, which is probably cheaper than the ink, which my friend here pointed out earlier on. And read some of the depth. And please let us know what you think. In a way, this is absolutely not it's not a closure of a research project. It's about a punctuation in it, and we're keen over the next couple of days to get people's feedback on what has been said, and to move forward with this, because we already have some fantastic ideas that we're working on to develop from what people have said, and we're keen to take those forward. So thanks for coming along tonight, and if you want one of these...
Well done, Heather.